that's the lesson that you take from this. Don't ever, ever, ever give up on someone.
When it comes down to it, it's a very difficult sport.
I enjoy the people that are here.
Thank you so much.
You're so welcome.
Welcome to Community Closeup. I'm Joe Nelson. Today we meet a brother and sister competing for the state title in archery. We uncover local historical artifacts that are often hidden from view. And we meet a woman who is finding ways to cut down trash and conserve resources. But first we reintroduce you to a Coon Rapids native whose life has changed course. A stranger's decision will impact his life forever, but it won't keep him from marching on.
Typically, if a student plays something wrong, they have a lot of tells like they stop playing or they get nervous and they play almost not at all, so you know something's wrong.
Growing up with drumsticks and horns in his hands, Elias Youngbloom knew he wanted to share his passion with others.
The downbeat's lined up. Now let's line up some of the middle notes, okay? Let's try it. 1 and 2.
As a volunteer instructor at Maple Grove High School, the 24-year-old from Coon Rapids helps students find the right pitch, rhythm, and tempo.
Try to make the first 2 notes quicker.
He points out mistakes and encourages excellence, but never looks at the sheet music.
The biggest obstacle that I'm facing now is how do I read music?
Elias would never read a quarter note, treble clef, or key signature again after his drive home from Fargo last March was cut short.
I was hit head-on by a drunk driver that was going the wrong way down I-94, so they were going westbound in the eastbound lane. And it was just over a hill, so I didn't really have time to react, and I didn't see it coming. And so I was extracted from the car, I don't know how long, and airlifted to Sanford Health in Fargo.
Police say 44-year-old Jana Battern of Fergus Falls had a .196 blood alcohol content when she crashed into Elias in Otter Tail County.
Broke every bone in my face. I think I broke my jaw in 3 places, radius and ulna. I broke the middle 2 bones in my hand, my middle finger. Liver laceration was another one that they had to take care of right away. I guess some bleeding in the brain that they took care of right away. And then later, it surfaced that I had some nerve damage in my right leg.
Suffering minimal damage to his brain, doctors expected a full recovery until...
They're doing a routine exam and they said, okay, follow the light with your eyes, and I didn't see a light.
Much has changed since we met with Elias last May at a rehabilitation center.
I had physical therapy all summer, pretty much, walking and stretching and strengthening. I still have a few sort of muscular issues with my left arm where it was broken really bad. I think it's a combination of the bad breaks and also that I then didn't use it for 6 months basically. I like to have people around still just because it's easier, but I just moved into my own apartment last month, so I'm living mostly on my own.
He now attends a rehabilitation school for the blind called Vision Loss Resources in Minneapolis. With some improvisation, he's reacclimating himself to an independent lifestyle.
I was pretty surprised that he decided he wanted to live on his own, not at home anymore.
I'm learning Braille, which is hard, and I can fake my way through most things. Walking around on my own, crossing busy streets, it's still terrifying, but I can do it. Yeah, going to the gym, working out, all sorts of stuff like that. Cooking has been one of the biggest things that I've been just relieved to get back into because I used to cook a lot, and now I can finally cook on my own again in my own apartment.
He's so tough, and so single-minded about it that I do think that's pretty great. So it's, it's a little bittersweet for me, but he's doing so well that it's hard not to be excited.
Go through that scale, the G harmonic minor. So
Elias says he can feel his other senses crescendo.
Mostly my sense of touch has improved a lot, out of reading Braille and using it to decipher what a lot of different things are. It's my hearing has been the other big one. I don't hear things, any more than anybody else does, but it's easier for me to decipher and discern what they are. Now I have to. Hearing, where things are, how far away things are, how high or low things are, stuff like that. So yeah, just more accurately of where things are. The whole time, don't let it stop. 1, 2, right.
While Elias was learning to walk, cook, and navigate, Battern waited to hear her sentence. After pleading guilty to criminal vehicular operation, that time came last month in a Fergus Falls courtroom. Battern was sentenced to 6 months in jail. She could be released on parole after serving 4.
When I first found out it was just going to be 6 months, I was so mad.
But she was also placed under probation for 5 years, where she'll undergo counseling, unable to drink or go wherever alcohol is served, and get random testing. She also must do community service, which could include sharing her story in schools.
While 6 months is not very long, like I said, the probation is really the important part. Because then if she breaks that, she'll go actually to prison to finish out another 12-month sentence. And with, forever on her record, she'll be a felon. If she can, change her life and get her stuff back in order, back to being a reasonable human being again, then that's the most important thing. And jail is not going to do that for her.
It felt like a big relief, to all the family that day to have it behind us. We were only disappointed that the sentencing guidelines aren't very strict. But that doesn't have anything to do with that particular case. It just has to do with our state. So, but what happened was all that could happen legally, and so we were happy with that.
If she can change, that's redeeming to me, because then something good came out of something bad. And if she doesn't, then nothing good came out of something bad, and that's awful, but I can't decide that. That's up to her.
Elias wakes up to a daily reminder of the dangers of drinking and driving.
You can't just think about yourself, and that's what people do when they drive drunk. They think, oh, I can do it, I'll be fine. Well, if you hit somebody, you will be fine. It's the people that you hit that aren't going to be fine. So there's no reason that anybody would have to drive drunk. There's no reason.
Through physical and mental challenges, the former college marching band drummer found melodies as remedies.
Even when I was in the hospital, the very first hospital, Sanford, the thing I remember most, because I was on a lot of sedatives and whatever, was the day that they decided to play music for me. It was like, all I had heard for the past, month had been machines beeping and people's voices, and so to finally hear something that was, enjoyable, it was just, amazing. And then getting back to work with my marching band right away was just super, super therapeutic in a lot of ways. I mean, physically it helped me recover. I had to walk a lot more, I had to stand, but mentally, emotionally, it brought me to a world that I am comfortable in, and it showed me that I could still do the things that I love doing, which was music and which was working with kids.
No one knows how they're going to react to something that drastic until it happens, and how he has handled it, and his willingness to just push as much as he can and to not get dragged down by feeling angry or feeling regrets in any way has really been inspiring. And so I'm really proud of him for that.
With plans to complete his degree at North Dakota State University, Elias says this rest in life won't keep him from finding his forte.
In most situations, there's always a path to where you want to get. It's not necessarily the path that you thought you wanted to take, but there's always a path to get to the end. You just have to find it. Sometimes you have to fight for it. Not everybody's going to hand you something free because you have something hard in your life. I've been really fortunate with a lot of people helping out, but that's not always going to happen. But that doesn't mean you can't do it. So just keep, if it's something that you really care about and you really want to do, there's always a way to do it. You just got to find it.
1, 2, 3.
Elias says he plans on biking the MS 150 on a tandem bike. The 2-day, 150-mile June bike ride raises money for multiple sclerosis. He also plans on finishing his music education degree in the fall. Still to come, we find out how to preserve family heirlooms at the Anoka County Historical Society. Stay with us. Since forming in 1934, the Anoka County Historical Society has collected thousands of items that tell stories of the past. Many of those are on display for the public, but most are hidden from public view. Items stored away can't stay that way without the risk of damage. We found out what it takes to preserve history, one artifact at a time.
Sometimes things in the past were very, very different from how they are now, and other times they're not really all that different at all. It's important for us to know that. And we can't know that if we don't have all of the things that tell those stories.
Reminders of the past fill the Anoka County History Center, embodied by wood, cloth, and metal. Current exhibits featuring soldiers, brides, and teddy bears tell stories, but most of the museum's pages go unseen.
This is our collections area back here, and so most of our collections actually live in this space. These are some of our quilts you can see in the boxes. Up above you'll see we have our framed objects collection.
Anoka County Historical Society archivist Audra Hilsey spends much of her time preserving what's often packed away.
We're trying to look through everything and make sure that it is stored the way it should be. There are things that we know now that weren't known in the past that we can make those updates. So it's a big project to actually go through the entire collection and try and look at everything and make sure that everything is stored as it should be. Preservation is kind of about holding back time. It's about keeping things in their current condition. Hopefully that's a good condition.
Not every item was kept with its future in mind.
We actually keep this dress just as an example of what can happen to fabric if it's not kind of kept in the right condition. The silk is very, very shattered. This silk was probably bleached very heavily when this dress was originally made because it was a wedding dress and they wanted it to be very white. But the bleaching, of course, is quite harsh on silk.
Others saw kinder treatment through time.
This is another wedding dress. You see we've got it padded out with the acid-free tissue to sort of help preserve the shape. And then we have it carefully folded in the acid-free box and then covered with the tissue. There's no additional acid that we're exposing this dress to, and then with the box closed and on the shelf, we're also blocking out a lot of that long-term light exposure. What I have here are 3 original Civil War discharge papers for soldiers who came from Anoka County. This had been folded a lot and was coming apart, and so someone thought, hey, I'll tape it together. It's a perfectly natural instinct. It's not really a great idea, though, in terms of long-term preservation.
Audra says too much humidity can bring mold, mildew, or water damage. Too little can make materials brittle.
You're aiming neither for the rainforest nor for the Sahara in terms of the conditions, but sort of comfortable living conditions for us. It's called the grandma rule. If the conditions are ones you wouldn't leave your grandmother in, don't leave your important family materials in them either.
Not all visitors are interested in items for their historical value.
Mice or various types of insects are happy to chew away at paper. It's another good reason to keep things kind of inside the house rather than, say, off in a garage or an attic where those types of pests might have more access to things.
She shares advice for anyone looking to guard mom's antiques from father time.
An antique quilt, for example, or for pictures on the wall, think about ways that you could minimize the amount of, say, direct sunlight, especially that they're getting. Throw a sheet over the quilt when no one's using the room. Think about closing blinds or pulling curtains if a certain wall that you've got important photos on happens to get a lot of sunlight in the afternoon. Tape is not your friend for long-term preservation. As you have a document that's falling apart or a photograph that's falling apart, try and encapsulate it in plastic where it's not actually stuck to anything. Just because adhesive breaks down over time. This is acid-free tissue paper, so that's one thing that we can do to help preserve materials. If you have acidic materials that you're keeping them in, that acid can sort of leach out over time into whatever's kept in the box.
Audra says she hopes generations in the future learn the value of salvaging the past.
Just as individuals, as families, as communities, isn't it more interesting to know the story of where you came from and how you got where you are now? To me, at least, that's definitely a thing I want to know. You know, those stories of our lives, and so I see that as our job here, is to preserve those stories and to help other people learn how to preserve their family story or their story. We need to have the stuff in order to be able to really know either those stories or to learn those lessons or whatever your need for learning from the past is. We can't do everything here either. We can't take everything. We can't preserve everything. So the more that we all as a community get involved in that process, the more we will have moving forward into the future.
Audra says the Historical Society has been lucky not to have to deal with any pests so far. To help in the preservation process, an Adopt an Artifact program offers those who donate information about an item and the ability to come take a look at it at the Historical Society. For more information, visit their website or stop by the center in Anoka. Up next, how one woman's efforts are encouraging others to recycle more and throw out less. Stay with us.
Can you help me with this? My new dad teaches me all kinds of stuff.
Sure.
He helps me with homework.
That would be 3.6795.
Thanks.
Yep.
He helps me with my decision making.
I wouldn't use this one. Ever.
And he's even teaching me how to drive.
And that's why cars have bumpers.
I'm learning so much.
You don't have to be perfect to be a perfect parent. Thousands of kids in foster care will take you just as you are.
A Minneapolis woman is finding ways to conserve in Coon Rapids, one dumpster at a time. Tanya Feldkamp is working with building owners, looking at recycling practices, both good and bad, to make positive changes.
I think it's the results are really tangible. Like most people think that they can't really do anything to help the environment, but recycling is just if you recycle a bottle, you're making a difference.
Tanya Feldkamp of Minneapolis is on a mission to spread that message throughout Coon Rapids. She's a member of Minnesota Green Corps, an AmeriCorps program run by the state's pollution control agency focusing on environmental projects. Tanya is teaching Coon Rapids apartment, townhome, and senior living building owners that one man's trash could one day become another man's grocery bag.
I'm focused on improving recycling rates at multi-unit buildings. There were definitely good and bad ones. Typically the senior communities had the best recycling. You could just tell that the people there really knew what they were doing. I would look in their bins and you could see that there was no contamination. Other buildings just don't really have enough recycling carts, so they just can't really recycle.
She's also finding ways to remind residents what's rubbish and what's recycling.
Lots of times it's kids bringing out the trash, so hopefully they can see the pictures and tell the difference, or people that don't speak English. I have these 3 buildings around this area. So far I've noticed about 1,000 pounds more into the recycling. Yeah, it's definitely cool to feel responsible for that and to have to see the change over time.
Although she's already seeing positive changes, Tanya says she hopes her work lasts longer than her temporary job title.
Hopefully I could recommend a change to them to maybe increase recycling, and then they could actually decrease their how many dumpsters they have or how many pickups they have for trash. So that could actually be a money-saving thing. But yeah, hopefully with my whole assessment, there could be city ordinance changes that actually require a certain amount of recycling capacity.
She says the current city ordinance doesn't encourage enough recycling.
There isn't very much muscle behind it, I guess. It's just you have to have, a building has to have recycling, but not any amount. I've been grading all of the buildings. I'll be sending out my assessment for them. I'm at kind of the halfway point where I'll start picking out certain buildings to try to come up with different strategies to see if they make a difference at all in recycling rates. So that could be better signage or just more educational materials or things like that.
Looking through dark dumpsters, she found a bright spot at Summit Oaks Apartments.
When I was doing the assessment, I was very excited to come here and see that there are people that are into recycling and that there were reuse efforts and donations and stuff like that. It was very encouraging. People can leave an end table or household items. So instead of throwing them away, because they still have a lot of use left in them, other people can just pick them up for free.
For long-term improvement to happen, she says people need to change their recycling routines.
There are people that are kind of not really into it, but I guess if you try to make it easier and then you try to show that other people are interested in it or other people are doing it, then it kind of normalizes the behavior. It just needs to become a habit.
Tanya says she hopes to hold buildings more accountable to offer enough bins or dumpsters to reflect the size of each complex. Coming up, we hit the archery range to meet 2 siblings who are competing for bullseyes and state titles. Stay with us.
Mom, can I have $1? Yeah, it's right. I think my purse is upstairs on the bed. It's not here. Check the dining room. No. What about your sister's room? It's not there either. The upstairs closet? The downstairs closet?
There are no more closets.
Moms everywhere are finding ways to keep kids active and healthy. Get ideas, get involved, get going at letsmove.gov.
Thanks for watching Community Closeup. We'll leave you with a little sibling rivalry on the archery range. Community Closeup's Jordan Rylance tells us about a brother and sister 1 year apart competing for family fame and a Minnesota state title. I'm Joe Nelson. We'll see you next month.
Its presence dates back to the 1900 Olympic Games. A game of accuracy, precision, and for one Coon Rapids family, bragging rights.
So who do you think is going to win this year, you or your sister?
Me.
You think you're going to?
Yeah.
Don't tell her that.
Kentucky natives Dylan and McKenna Langley are only a year apart in age, but they're closing the gap on the archery range.
We have to compete with each other both in 20 yards for seeing who gets a higher place or not, because last year I didn't have to shoot against her.
Dylan's older sister McKenna was just 7 years old when she first picked up a bow at a friend's birthday party.
I thought it was really cool, so I talked to my parents about it, and they said, yeah, we'll go shoot a few times, and that's where it all started.
Now, at 13, she's one of the best female archers in the state of Minnesota. Last year, Dylan placed at the Minnesota State Archery Association tournament, but his sister did something at the competition that few 13-year-olds can do on the archery range.
Last year in state, I shot a Robin Hood, but he got on the podium, so it was kind of a win-win for both of us.
To hit a bullseye once, then hit it again by splitting the shaft of the previous arrow down the middle is referred to as a Robin Hood, and McKenna did it.
She's a really good shot. McKenna is one of our best shooters here in the league.
In 6 weeks, McKenna and Dylan will compete in the state archery tournament once again, this time against each other, both shooting from the 20-yard range. Joe Caminati owns Average Joe's Archery. It started as a small business in downtown Anoka over 6 years ago, and soon they outgrew their facility and moved to Coon Rapids. Sharing his passion of archery,
More of an obsession, if you ask my wife.
is what prompted him to open a business that would allow kids to enjoy the sport just as he did.
It's my biggest joy. When we started Average Joe's Archery, that's kind of where we're going with it. I have 3 kids of my own. They all shoot bows. They all, enjoy the outdoors, and families and the kids are really why we do what we do.
Kids, adults, men, and women are now taking part in what was once a male-dominated sport, thanks to movies like The Hunger Games, a successful trilogy which featured a female archer.
Over the last 5 years, we've just seen an explosion with girls and women participating in the sport.
Girl, boy, age 13 or 12. Those details won't matter once Dylan and McKenna face off against each other in April when they compete for Best Shot and Langley family fame. For Community Closeup, I'm Jordan Rylance.